Welcome to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, brought to you by Pilma. This podcast helps lead lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Here is your legal marketing expert and host, Ken Hardison.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Ken Hardison, and welcome to another episode of Grow Your Law Firm. And today we have the honor and pleasure to have Mr. Phillip H. Kearns on our show today. Thank you, Phillip. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it.
I'm on our show. He has got a vast, wide range of experience in running and creating and scaling law firms and making them efficient. He's actually from my neck of the woods up in Lexington, North Carolina, probably about 3 hours away from where I grew up. And actually worked for one of my competitors up in the western part of the state. I think they're all over North Carolina now. Has left that position. He also was the driving for a lot of people with no referral fees. I just think they do a really good job of doing after our calls. I've used them myself. And I know that was hard putting that together, Phillip, but kudos to you. And he was also chief process officer and intake director. I mean, he's done it all. He actually went to law school, got a law degree. He managed the Social Security Department. So you've been doing this how long? Over 20?
Oh yeah, it's been over
years?
20 years. Yeah. I started actually with an insurance company on the other side of the V, and I was there for a while and managed claims department there as well.
That's
and,
right, GMAC.
That's right, in-house legal, managed that. I managed lawyers and paralegals there and claims adjusters. So seen both sides.
So that's another feather in your hat, because you know how the other side works, which is very important.
Yeah, and I think that kind of gave me a little bit of a start of how you manage volume and how you can scale things and things like that. Some of the lessons I learned at the insurance company kind of gave me a little bit of a background there too.
So one thing I wanted to talk about today, we talked yesterday, and what I see is everybody knows before you can scale any business, law firm too, you got to have the process, procedures, and systems in place so that you can scale it, so that everybody's doing it the same way, everything's efficient. You got to need it for onboarding new people, because as you grow, you're going to add more and more people. And, one of your jobs over the years has been chief process officer. So first of all, I want to ask you, add to what I said. Why do you think processes are so important for law firms that want to take it to the next level?
I think they're extremely important. Some of the things that you mentioned obviously are very important. The efficiency part of it, the building the consistency, the efficiency part of it. But some of the secondary things that people may or may not think about is what effect it has on your team members. For example, if your team members are having to recreate the wheel all the time and you're not telling them how to do it, that creates additional stress on their job. So they're more likely to get stressed out on the job and not perform their job duties as efficiently as they can. And then it's hard to find people, right? So you want to make sure that you're giving them a really good work environment. The other thing is, from a marketing perspective, if you've got your processes and your procedures tight and you're doing it the same way, you're delivering an outstanding product, then the consumer is going to see that. You're going to be able to see that over your Google reviews. You're going to be able to see that things are working properly. You're going to actually drive more cases, that you're actually organized law firm and you're not, again, recreating the wheel every single time. Processes are built around consistency and efficiency, but the whole purpose of it is to deliver an outstanding product every single time. As you scale, those kind of pressures are coming they magnify. And if you ignore it over time, it'll start creeping into your numbers. And then it also, again, stresses your staff out. So those are some unknown things that people necessarily don't think about as downstream, how that can help the entire organization, your recruiting, all those kind of things.
Yeah, and something else I just thought of when you were talking is, if you're more efficient, then that means you can move the cases quicker, not shortchange anybody, but move more efficiently, which means that you turning your inventory over quicker, which means you don't have to have as many people, right?
Yeah, and at some point you look at, you don't have to have as many people, you're turning them over quicker, and gives you a better idea too of what you can expect on the other end. And if your process is pretty specific from a business owner perspective, you kind of have a better idea about predicting cash flow and those types of things. that can kind of help you as well. And again, it doesn't stress the team as much, and you're able to help more clients over a period of time. So yeah, you're 100% correct about that. That's one of the other advantages that I've seen with having a solid process procedure system.
What I see across the line all over, PILMA members, non-PILMA members, is that they know they need to do it. They get started on doing it, and then somehow the practice gets in the way, things get in the way. Nobody's kind of spearheading it, holding everybody accountable. It just kind of never happens. I mean, I know some firms have been trying to do it for 2 years. So give us the secret sauce, man. Let our listeners and viewers know what is the process for, creating processes and procedures, and doing it right.
Yeah, I'm glad
What
you
is the
asked that.
process for creating?
Yeah, well, the process is, first of all, you got to do an assessment. You got to know where your gaps are. And you probably have a lot of really good people in your office that can help you do that. You can go to those higher performers and ask them how things are going, ask them how they do things, et cetera, to try to start getting a kind of a gap analysis going as to what you need to do. Now, my secret sauce is simple. It's as you go through this entire process, it's start, stop, stay. If you see something that needs to be done, you start it. You look at the process from that perspective. If you see something that is not working, you need to stop it. If you see something that needs to stay the way it is, it's working perfectly. Don't change it. Start, stop, stay. It's kind of the mantra you go through with that. So once you get your assessment, you identify those issues, and then you go through and address each one of them individually and where your gaps are, and kind of get yourself a game plan, a roadmap, if you will. Go through the roadmap and address it one step at a time. Now, a lot of firms get stuck, and then you get yourself a plan. A lot of firms get stuck with just so much. You see, we can see a lot of problems. We can see a lot of opportunity. So my approach is you look at the one that's going to give you the most bang for your buck necessarily first, and you kind of work back, because there's going to be a lot of, as you go through this, you're going to be like, well, I want to do this. I want to do that. You need to look at the need as far as how do you prioritize those changes that you're going to be making, because change management is also a big problem. So that you have to solve almost separately, but you need to go through those and identify which ones you want to do. Now, as far as specific, you want to make sure that you're documenting the process. You want to make sure that you're establishing the matrix that you want to hit. You want to identify the roles and responsibilities of each of your team members. I would recommend a team that you dedicate in your firm that can constantly be looking at this kind of stuff. And it can be at all levels. And it should be at all levels. So you're getting a lot of the feedback there. And then once you go through those exercises, depending on the problem, then you look at whether you can and how you test the new processes. You look at incrementalization of it. You do one thing at a time and not try to eat the entire elephant all at once. You eat a piece, how you eat the elephant, eat a little bit at a time. And then you look at, once you've gone through that entire process, the last step is, or one of the steps, maybe not the last step, is you look at what you can automate, what you can outsource. There's a lot of automation there. You can do repetitive tasks, and you can outsource pieces of it that you feel like you're not that good at yet, or that you probably can get cheaper. And you kind of put your entire plan together and look at the overall plan. Now, it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. My recommendation is just take one step at a time.
So I'm going to tell you the way I did it, and I want you to tell me, and you can, maybe I'm doing it wrong, and I'll thank you for the rest of my life. But what I like to do is find a person, once we agree, once you kind of go through the analyzing it, assessment, I don't want like just 2 or 3 people doing all the processes and procedures for everything in the firm. I want the people who I think, like you said, the high achievers, I want them to sit down and then write this out step by step. And it's not just case management. It could be your intake. It could be your finances. It could be your marketing. Everything needs that, because if you just do a little 2 or 3 people doing it, it's like, to me, it's going to take 2 or 3 years. Whereas if you got your best person over here, your best case manager, your best litigation paralegal, your best lawyer, your best marketing person, your bookkeeper, whatever, you got to have a head, right? You got to have a leader, somebody in charge to hold everybody accountable. Because if nobody's in charge, I mean, if you got more than one, then you got nobody, right?
Yeah.
Then again, here's my question: is number one, do you agree with that, or you think I could do it a better way?
No, I agree with it. And it really comes down to once you decide that nobody likes change, okay? So once you get to the point where you're going to improve your processes, and we're talking about process improvement, once you get to this point, you really need all those advocates in there that have been part of the process at every single level to be bought into the process and to help you manage the change when you implement. Okay.
Right.
The big problem a lot of times is implementing. You're serving two masters at that particular point. You're thinking about, hey, I need to get the best person that's good at this particular function. And I want to get there in their head. I want them to help me develop it. So you really have a committee, and the committee could be a few people here and there, and you bring people on and off of the committee to say, okay, now I need to talk about intake. You need to worry about intake. Now you need to have somebody to manage it, and you probably need somebody that's kind of objective about the whole thing that really doesn't necessarily have a particular in the fight an individual issue, because you want to keep an open mind if you're going through it. So I agree with you. And that plus, Ken, that serves you well long term if you're involving not everybody in the firm, but as many people in the firm as you can, depending on where it is. And it makes them feel good. It makes them feel invested in the future of the firm. And it makes them feel like they're part of this ultimate change that's coming on. So that's what I would suggest. If you don't have one person going in there looking at every single detail. That's not what it's about. It's about getting a good process together for your firm. Is about listening to the people that are working, the ones that are doing their job and doing it right, and implementing that. I think that goes a long way in the success of the law firm.
Yeah. So, what do you recommend far as software or whatever? They got to be a place where a depository for all these things so people can go find them, right?
Yeah.
I say a depository, whatever you call it. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I know there's some things out there like Sweet Success, Touchstone, and there's some other ones out there. I mean, or you can use, I guess, Google Docs. I don't know. What do you like?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've put stuff on Teams channels before, and that's one that we like to use just because, or we'd like to use. But the Google Docs and some of the ones that you're mentioning, we have repositories for that for videos and documentation and things like that. And if you've got a company intranet that's just for you, then we have put a lot of stuff on those company intranets before. And that way you can kind of manage it that way. You just need it in a place, quite honestly, Ken, where people can get to it. You don't want to make it hard. You want to put it in a place where they can get to it once you've got your finished product there. So those are the ones I've used in the past.
I was at a mastermind a couple of weeks ago, and one of our members was telling me they're using this software called Scribe, SCRIBE,
Mm-hmm.
how.com. And
Yeah.
so when you're sitting there doing some process and procedure, you sit there and you're telling what you're doing and how you're doing it. And then it's got an AI component to it. And it sits there
Oh,
and
yeah.
it creates a process for you. And of course, you can edit it or whatever, but you got the video there too while you're doing it with a screenshot. And then it does like a checklist or whatever. I thought that was
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
I hadn't tried it out myself. I was intrigued by that. I don't know.
Yeah. That AI is revolutionizing everything. So from everything from, everything from intake all the way to stuff like that, to process, to demand development, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So whatever works necessarily for the firm is what you should do. And you should always select as far as that goes. Starting from scratch, that's a Herculean task. I could understand it. I think that, firms to succeed and grow, they have to have that. They have to have that process and procedures written, documented, and somewhere where the team can get it and train on it and kind of go from there. Now, a lot of firms use their CRM or their case management software to basically drive the process. Their checklist, you mentioned checklist, task list, depending on which one you're using. So a lot of firms use that to drive the processes through the actual software where the person is in the case. That's the way that I've always advocated, in addition to the written part, advocated that you set your CRM up to reflect your process, not the other way around. The CRM, in my mind, should not drive your process. That's out of the box. Only you know what you need to do. So getting those people set up on their appropriate checklist, documentation, what do you put in this field, et cetera, is a plus. Not to mention your documents. You got lawyers that, how you send your demand out, what you say sometimes is a process. So if you've got something that works, you might as well replicate it across the firm. So get the documents from those law firms, from those lawyers that really work, produce those great results, and make that part of your firm, your process. And I say all this to not imply there's not creativity in and taking away the thought process of anybody in the minds, in the workflow, but it helps organize kind of how you work your case, how you work. And then you let those lawyers do what they need to do, which is lawyer. And again, we went through law school. They teach you how to process a case in law school. They teach you how to even take the test. So this is something that you're expanding out. So it's a positive, very positive thing. You can get your processes tied down tightly.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think it does take a lot of time, but I think once you get it done, it's like, man, it's going to make it so much easier for you, your staff, for new members when they come in. You were
Right.
talking about CRM. I remember when I was practicing, we had it set up with all the checklists, and they would come in and they'd open up their computer and open up their CRM, and it would pull up their task that they had due, and it would show if there was any past due, they would be in red, and we could run reports off each person and see if they were getting in trouble or how much load they had, if they were behind a head or whatever, or about right. And that can help you manage too. We use that a lot. I mean, a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, use that a lot. And then, a lot of the new softwares that are coming out that are web-based, that are reporting-based, and it goes to everything as far as timelines, time on desk, how long it takes for you to collect your fee, how long it takes for you to get your demands out. Okay.
Yep.
So all of those, if you're seeing those indicators, it could be a red flag to the law firms if you're seeing those indicators going up, flattening out, or hopefully not going down. If you're seeing that's some indicator that maybe you need to look at your process. It's something going on with the process. There's an example. One firm I was working with, they were slow to get their demands out. Now, the demands from way back in the day, the demands, as far as from a business perspective, from a business perspective and client perspective, aren't worth a plug nickel until you get the case resolved. They're sitting there, and if you're not moving them and you're not doing a service to your client to get those demands out, you're going to be hurting your reputation, A, and B, your cash flow is going to hurt, et cetera, et cetera. So they were slow getting their demands out. Well, they started doing this assessment of why is this happening? Well, it turned out that it wasn't the fact that the legal assistant and the attorney weren't doing their job. They were literally doing their job. Once they got all the medical records, see where I'm going with this, they were able to put the demand together 1 or 2 days, get it out again and resolve the case. Well, they found out that they were having a lag in getting the medical record. So we went through an analysis there and found out that we weren't getting the medical records. First of all, we were waiting till the very end of the case to order them. And so that was taking a little bit of time. And second of all, the legal assistants were just overwhelmed by having all these records edited. So the solution was twofold. We looked at the process of once the person is released, going all the way through till you're ready to mail the demand, and what you needed to gather. And what you needed to gather was the medical records and bills. And the decision was made to outsource that. Okay, this is where it was more efficient to outsource that. And also, as you ordered those medical records, you started ordering medical records from the beginning. The ones that were ready, were available, you ordered them right away. You didn't wait till the end. Okay, so for example, your ambulance bill or your ER bill. Now, ongoing medical records, like going to PT or Pyro, you kind of have to wait till they're done with their treatment there to get all those at once because you won't do anything. But that's an example of how the firm that I was working with used the process analysis, and therefore their demands were getting out much faster because they were building them as the client was treating them. And then they outsourced those medical records and the services that will do that now. And that helped a ton because that allowed the legal assistant to spend less time ordering the medical records and following up and calling the hospitals. to actually interacting with the clients, doing the right thing, and making sure they're managing the clients. So that's an example of, as you start looking at this, you never know where it's going to be. And that's where creativity would come in with a law firm and knowing these options are out there.
You left the law firm, you left the intake company, Intake Solutions America, and you started your own company called Kearns Legal Solutions, right?
Yep.
And one of the things you do, and I want to talk about this too, is you help firms recruit. So tell me, what do you do? I mean, is it lawyers or staff or offshore? I mean, how do you facilitate this? I mean, what's your process?
Yeah. My head hog on that is I have done management, okay, but I have done mostly attorneys, okay. So nowadays and I've been doing this for a while, is kind of a side gig. My old firm, and they were allowed me to do it if there was not a conflict. Working with law firms to find those people that aren't necessarily looking for a job, okay. So you literally recruit. You go and you find people that may meet that, you network, and you try to find people that are a good fit for the law firm. And what I do is I get them, I screen them, then I pass them on to the law firms to hopefully place them. I do the kind of the placement of that. I've done that for a while, and I really enjoy that because I like talking to people and learning about them. I've met a lot of lawyers that didn't fit. Unfortunately, I've been able to do some placement, some recruitment as well. I don't do as much of that right now. There's more of this kind of consulting on the consulting part, but that's an element of what I've done in the past and do now.
Well, I mean, you got the experience. I mean, because I know the firm you work with is huge now. And they were big when I was practicing 20 years ago, but they're huge now. So you got a lot of experience. So I know you learned some things like I did the hard way, through trial and error
Oh yeah, trial and error.
probably working with other law. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the masterminds. I'll be honest with you, Phil, that's a big problem lawyers are having right now, is finding lawyers that's a good fit. People that want to work or people that want to go try cases. I mean, I've said it before. I think in the next 10 years, a truly good trial lawyer should be able to write his own ticket, because I just don't see as many young lawyers coming out that really want to go try cases. I don't know. I don't know what you're seeing, but I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a quandary there. I think there's a lot of lawyers out there that want to try cases, but they want to try the big cases. They want to try the winners. Okay. You got to kind of get your nose bloody a little bit. And some of those attorneys, it sounds better than it really is. And then they get in there and it's like, it's not necessarily what I want. But that's how you learn. In some of the areas, and you connected on it, the trial lawyers are the hardest ones to find, because and you can't come in there with a weak offer. You've got to really be able to pay. And that's hard for a lot of firms, Ken. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, they can demand the money and they're going to get it somewhere. Now, some of the other positions, pre-lit, to find a good pre-lit attorney, you can find one of those, but they're easier to find. Comp, disability, those kind of attorneys.
You work with the insurance company, and I've asked prior insurance adjuster before, and insurance companies know which law firms will go to court and try cases. And number one, will you go to court? And then number two, do you make them nervous sometimes because they know you're capable of ringing a bell? You know what I'm saying? So you've got to have that if you really want to get the best results. I mean, to get your average fee up, you got to go to court. So I mean, even if you lose the case, I mean, just the fact that you go. Now, I mean, because most of the time, what I found, these big verdicts, is either you got a real stubborn client or either you got a case that's got shaky liability but great damages. And the insurance companies say, roll the dice, and then, that's how you get a $10, $20 million verdict. I mean, it's not the really good cases with great liability, great plaintiff, great damages. 90% of the time, they're going to settle. Try your shit cases or either something that's got something wrong with it, and then sometimes you can ring a bell. I mean, but
now what I have found, Ken, is some firms just abandon, well, that's a hard word. But some firms just move on from trying to have one themselves and they look at partnering with other firms. Another example, for example, one that maybe it's a smaller firm and they want to share the fee, but they want to send them one or two whopper giant co-counsel cases that they want them to try and be the trial attorney. Okay. Some firms do that. Okay. That way you kind of have that option and you know what their reputation is. Some people say, well, it's not really us trying it, it's them. It's like, in my mind, it's like, who cares? If you get a client that comes to you and they need to go to trial and you don't have the resources, you owe it to that client to get somebody to help you. I think it's actually in some of the ethics opinions, right? If you can't handle a case, you need to. Now, I've seen some firms do that, particularly smaller to medium firms will partner with larger firms on those larger cases. And, there's a lot of there are great trial attorneys out there. They don't handle volume. Okay. And they rely, I believe, on referrals. They may not TV advertise. They may not market the way everybody else does. They rely on partnerships with other firms to help them handle those cases. That's a way of having your cake and eat it too. And you don't have them on your payroll, but you do need to be prepared to share the fee in a big, big way. But, if you're looking at your average fee, you can work on your average fee at the bottom as well. And that's where some of the process stuff comes back around is how do you medically manage the cases? How do you take that $15,000 case and make it a 30, those kind of things. There's ways you can do that where you don't necessarily need to go to trial, but you hit the nail on the head as far as the carriers go. The carriers, even when I did it 6,000 years ago, their whole focus of what they were doing was risk management. It was risk management. So if you've got a fact pattern that scares them, then you need to do that. You don't want to roll over, but they know the risk because they've seen so many hundreds of thousands of millions of cases. So they've got all that data. And the plaintiffs bar actually have it. It's just got to share it about what works, what doesn't work, those kind of things. But it's about the fact pattern and how you develop your cases and how you present them to. There's ways you can do that, as you well know. You can do that in the pre-lit stage. Sometimes but it is risk management. So they'll allow you to trial those small to medium cases all day long. They're not scared of them. All that does is feed the defense attorneys. Okay. But they're not going to try one where they've got high exposure and liability is, even moderately iffy. But depends on what state you're in, right? I mean, you and I
Right.
practice in one of the contrib states. There's cases out there with multi-million-dollar verdict potentially, but 1% contrib knocks you out of the box. So, modified comparative states, which I know some of your clients are modified comparative or even pure comparative, those are the states where you can really ring the bell. Because even if you get a $50 million verdict and it's reduced by 50%, it's 25
Yeah.
million that you've helped that client get. So the carriers know that. They know where they're going to be. So I think, setting your firm up in a situation where they can document the case properly and get as much for the client as they possibly can and be focused on those larger cases and try to find that. Now, we just talked about, how trying to find those trial lawyers. They're tough to do. Some firms build them from internal, but that takes a long time. And some firms go out and hire them. It's like that. Now, as far as, back to the process thing and making their jobs so that they're a little bit more comfortable how they do things. Some of your process, well, a lot of your process, what is your culture and what do people necessarily want coming out? Since COVID, work-life balance has been an extremely important piece to new people coming on, the people staying, those kind of things. So if you've got a good solid process and it's helping your culture, and if they got good work-life balance, then I think they're going to stay longer and you'll be able to attract people. Nobody wants to go to work, quite honestly, for a poorly managed law firm. And even if you're paying them a lot of money and have all that stress build up on them, that's just kind of what I'm hearing when I'm recruiting for jobs now, and being able to work hybrid or remote is a big deal now, all across the board, all the way down to your intake reps, all the way down to, whatever. And some firms embrace that, some don't, but that's okay. That's their decision. So it's a really tough nut to crack, but I think it all fits together. I look at it as, business, and I'm sure you do too, is it's the four P's. It's the people, the process, the product, and the profit. So those are the four P's that we have to do. And in this case, process, I think, ties it all together really well and connects those pieces to give you the best profit possible.
So if somebody wants to get up with you or pick your brain or hire you, what's the best way for them to get up with you, Phil?
The best way is to just send me an email, and it's Phil at K, the letter K, as in Kearns, legalsolutions.com. That's where my website is, Kearns Legal Solutions, but it's klegalsolutions.com. Or they can call my cell if they want to. If they want to chat about anything, it's 336-972-2814. And I'd be happy to talk to them about anything they have, try to help them with anything they've got.
Well, listen, thank you so much. And I appreciate you being on the show today and look forward to working with you in the future.
Great. Have a great day.
All right. Until next time, this is Ken Hardison, dedicated to your success.
You have been listening to the Grow Your Law Firm podcast, the podcast that leads lawyers to more growth, profit, and freedom. Go to growyourlawfirm.com to find more ways to market and manage your law firm. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.